It's been 2 weeks, and it feels like Caleb Williams has already figured out a pretty valuable lesson, and that is that the NFL is not college. Things don't come nearly as easy, and it's hard out there. You have to change the way you play to some degree, and the Bears are off to an odd start. They're 1-1. They won a game, but the game they won, they didn't score an offensive touchdown. The offense has looked absolutely awful, and that does include Caleb Williams. The Bears came into this season with this huge sense of hope and excitement because of Caleb. It's always nice when you have a young quarterback with a ton of promise, especially when they are the first overall pick. And that hope is still there, but the play on the field, at least early on, has just not been pretty. But first, thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video. Finally, we now have a very long, fun football season ahead of us. And you can jump in on all the action playing daily fantasy at DraftKings. New customers can download the app and use code JDPROD for a free shot at millions in prizes with your first $5 deposit. That's code JDPROD only on DraftKings. To play, just draft your roster and those players earn points based on their in-game performances. And make sure you check out everything DraftKings has to offer on their website or in the app. So what are you waiting for? Download the DraftKings app now. New customers use our promo code JDPROD and play free for a share of millions in prizes with your first deposit of $5. Thanks again to DraftKings, and let's get right back to the video. Now, I'd argue the number one biggest issue for Caleb Williams has been the offensive line in front of him. They have been very bad. Caleb has already been sacked 9 times through 2 weeks, tied with Gardner Minshew for the most in the league. They can't win pass blocking, and they can't win run blocking either. Their pass blocking is ranked 30th. Their run blocking is ranked 28th. It really did help having a guy like Justin Fields able to run around the pocket last season and beyond, but Caleb isn't that same type of player. And now he's really in that weird process of trying to adjust to the NFL level. He's still trying to figure out what will and what won't work in the pros. And that's been really evident, especially on some of his really weird dropbacks when he runs back and just tries to run around trying to extend a play. But it's not college football. He can't just run backwards, outrun guys, and then make a big play that goes for a big game. In the NFL, every single guy on both teams, they're really fast. They're elite athletes. They're essentially all Americans in college. They're all high-level guys, and that's something that every single rookie quarterback is trying to figure out. It isn't college, and that's something everybody has to figure out year one, and that is just natural. It's a lot harder, though, when the offensive line isn't good. When you look around at all of the rookie quarterbacks' offensive lines, they've all been terrible. In fact, out of all 5 teams that took a quarterback in the first round, even guys who haven't actually played yet, like Drake May, Michael Penix, and even JJ McCarthy, who's hurt, all of these offensive lines are not good. The only offensive line that's actually a decent offensive line is the one playing in front of Bo Nix, and he has been absolutely horrible. Personally, as a Commanders fan, I was really worried about the offensive line in front of Jaden, and it hasn't been very good. Jaden Daniels has had to run for his life a couple times, but I was really worried about that hurting his development. But I can't tell you how thankful I was after watching the Bears on Sunday night that I kind of got this appreciation for the Washington line, because it's been bad, but it really felt like Caleb Williams just could not do anything. A lot of these issues that we're seeing from Caleb Williams pretty early on here, I think are just issues of the certain things that are around him. Offensive line, I think, is usually the number one biggest thing. And I think when you look at coaching, I've never really been particularly happy with the Matt Eberflus era. I don't think Shane Waldron has been fantastic as an offensive coordinator, and there's a lot of things that I think the Bears need to change. And I think there's a lot of things that this offseason, especially if the Bears can't right the ship, are still not a very good offensive team. I wouldn't be surprised if they completely clean house and all of a sudden Caleb Williams is starting year 2 with a new head coach, and that is when he can really explode off. You look at Justin Herbert getting a new head coach and finally escaping Anthony Lynn and kind of shooting up, and you see the same with Trevor Lawrence after just the absolute disaster that was Urban Meyer, and then he gets Doug Peterson and he kind of shoots off. I think that's going to be the exact trajectory we're probably going to see with Caleb Williams. Now, I do applaud the Bears for doing such a great job of already having offensive weapons around Caleb, but it's really hard for him to get the ball to them if the offensive line doesn't hold up very long enough for him to just get a pass off. Caleb hasn't been very good passing the ball at all, really, and I do think some of that is his fault as well. He's a rookie. In 2 games, he's only thrown 267 yards. He's been 37 of 66, still no touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. It hasn't been great, obviously, and that hasn't allowed the wide receivers to get going at all. DJ Moore has led the pack with 89 yards on 11 receptions. Nobody else has more than 50 yards or more than 5 receptions, though. Moore has been the clear number one, which was definitely the expectation. Roma Dunze second on the team in receiving yards with 44, and that's only on 4 catches. Then Cole Kmet has the second most catches with 5, good for 31 yards. He should, in theory, I think, be a pretty good safety net for Caleb at tight end. Now, Caleb definitely does need to spread the ball around a little bit more. It's early, but it's just been a really bad start. Last year, the Bears definitely just got used to Fields being able to carry the offense and be the guy on the ground too. That should not be the case with Caleb. That's not where he's best, and yet he still leads the Bears with 59 rushing yards. That's more of a worry for the rushing game, considering the only other guy with over 20 yards is DeAndre Swift, who just got a big bag and is only averaging 2 yards per carry across 24 carries. The run game and the passing game are both lacking bad, and that's why the Bears aren't a very good team, and that's been very clear if you've watched them play this season. When you look at the offensive stats from the outside looking in, it's a bit of a shock the Bears are 1-1 and not 0-2. Then you realize that the offense really did nothing in their season opening win against the Titans. Caleb Williams didn't even have 100 passing yards. It wasn't a game you watched and decided that the Bears offense was any good. The Titans went up 17-0 in the second quarter, and the way the Bears offense was playing, it seemed like the Bears had no chance to actually win. Well, the Bears did win, but it had nothing to do with the Bears offense. The Bears hit a field goal late in the half to make it 17-3, and then in the second half, the Bears defense and special teams just came alive. Cairo Santos had to drill 2 deep field goals from 50 and 48. Then the 2 Bears touchdowns were a blocked punt touchdown by Jonathan Owens that he scooped up and scored, and then the game winner was a Tyreek Stevenson pick 6 on truly just one of the worst decisions you'll see any NFL quarterback make. Will Levis is just falling down and just throws it up, and he essentially cost the Titans the game. They ended up losing 24-17. As long as Caleb isn't doing that, I mean, I think that's a good start, at least. But the Bears offense was truly awful in week 1. It wasn't much better in week 2. Santos had a drill from 53 and 54, but the Bears did finally score their first touchdown of the season, a 2-yard punch in for Khalil Herbert. Proki, my favorite player in the league right now. I mean, he was a beast at Virginia Tech, was my favorite player my first year as a student there. That was one of only 2 touchdowns all game, actually. Nico Collins caught a touchdown from CJ Stroud, but really, it was Keami Fairbairn who hit 4 field goals to win 19-13 for the Texans. It does seem like the Bears defense is solid so far, but when you look at the offense, there are just so many issues. I think at this point, we are still seeing some of those Caleb Williams flashes of what he could become. He has so much of this talent, and you see in him that he can be a guy that's a really good NFL player in the future. And I think it's very similar to what we have seen with other guys that have gone on to be great, or even just the flashes that you saw from a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who hasn't necessarily lived up to the hype, or a guy like Bryce Young, who at this point looks kind of broken. So I think a lot of it comes down to how Caleb is being developed and what is around him to try to help him become a better player. And if the Bears can't figure that out, then there's going to be a huge problem in Chicago, because this is your first overall pick. You need to do every single thing you can to help Caleb Williams, because you sold out for this guy and he is now your future. When you look at previous seasons for the Bears offense, it hasn't been pretty. It's been constant disappointments, and to think Caleb Williams was going to walk right in and change all of that was probably stupid. It's important for a young quarterback to have the right structure and be able to develop and become a good player, and really it just shows us that Justin Fields was not the issue, which I think a lot of people did know. A lot of Bears wanted to keep Justin Fields. There's been some really long seasons for Bears fans, and honestly, it's just not going to change overnight. Chicago's still the same franchise, and it takes a lot to change old habits. But personally, I am a big believer that Caleb Williams can be a very good NFL quarterback. At the same time, I view him a lot as a Trevor Lawrence type guy, the guy that came into the league where I watched him play in college and thought, this is a guy that is going to figure it out. He's going to be a good NFL quarterback. He's going to be a good pocket passer. And honestly, I think Caleb probably has a higher ceiling than Trevor did, but I still can't believe Trevor Lawrence did not turn into a franchise level NFL quarterback. And so it makes me wonder if the same fate could happen to Caleb Williams. If the Bears can't figure this out, if the Bears can't put a better offensive line in front of him next year or in the future and get him better coaching around him, then this is just going to be a mess. And Caleb Williams could end up just having a bad career despite being a huge prospect and a first overall pick.